Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast, a space where we embrace marks acquired through our journey. My name is Elizabeth Savion, and welcome back to another episode of this podcast. On this episode, we are going to have another returning guest, Maria Fernandez, which is my therapist / counselor. She's on here. She's educated us on just mental health trauma. She has told her story about narcissistic relationships. So I'm really excited to have her back on the podcast to talk about codependency. So welcome back, Maria.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on and educating us. And this is a topic that hits really close to home because I have considered myself a recovering codependent.
Me too.
And that is something that I really learned through my therapy sessions was about boundaries. Codependency, what it is, and just how that plays out in relationships, and also our attachment styles from childhood. So first, can we talk a little bit about codependency, Maria?
Yes. You know, the term codependency really came from work that was being done in the world of addiction. Mm-hmm. That was really foundationally where that word came out. And one of the first persons that it's a classic and you have it, Melody Beattie, which is Codependent No More. Everybody should read this book. It's just about really understanding how, I think to some level, we can all have some codependency, but man, what a great way of really walking through what is codependency, what does it mean? This is her. You have the 25th anniversary, so that's the most recent one. Mm-hmm. There's another one that I like. I've started to look at. It's called Facing Codependency. And this one I like because she kind of talks a lot about, and in my discussion, I'm going to talk about one of the areas that I really like how she does it, Pia Melody. She says, what are the symptoms of codependency? And there's 5 areas that we're going to talk about. Okay, so what is codependency? A codependent individual is an excessive and unhealthy compulsion to rescue and to take care of people.
Yeah.
Excessive, unhealthy, and it's a compulsion.
When I was reading the book, I highlighted the whole book. Literally, It was like insane because I was like, this is me. Like, it was very mind blowing because in the first, exactly what you just said, learning that it's a lot about being reactive, being controlling, being like a savior or a rescuer in sometimes relationships, dynamics.
Yes. You lose sight of your own needs and wants to the detriment of yourself and even the other person. Can be very, very, very complicated. Codependency. I also like the book Codependent. There's Codependent No More. And what I use, do I have it here? The antidote to codependency is boundaries. I want to talk a little bit about, okay, so what are the symptoms of codependency in 5 areas? So the first one is codependency, and people that are codependent have difficulty experiencing appropriate levels of self-esteem. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. Oh my gosh. And you've almost given that over to the other person. So if the other person is happy, you're happy. You don't know where you stop and the other person begins because there's an enmeshment that occurs. The second one is there's a difficulty in setting functional boundaries. You have really poor boundaries. There's not a limit. Like, you can find yourself as a codependent. Why did I do this? Why am I doing all this? Why do I keep behaving over and over again? And I keep doing this. Oh my God. And I don't want to do this. But there's not a boundary. And you say, okay, I have a new boundary. This is what the boundary is going to be. And then
goes out the window.
Yes.
Like, your no's are like with a question mark. Like they're like not a solid no. It's always like it can be changed depending on what the person's reaction to what you say.
When you are struggling with something and you try to make a change, there is such a painful process of emotions. Am I sure I should do this? Oh my God. If I'm going to be true to this boundary is black and white and it says, I will no longer do this. And then you're, but it doesn't feel right. And you go back to your feelings instead of being protected with the boundary. Boundaries protect us. Two kinds of boundaries. I really like the way she talks about it. There's an internal and external. So your internal boundaries are the boundaries that you set about your feelings, your thinking, and your behavior. Those are yours. Those are, I guard my heart. And the Bible talks about we should guard our heart. It talks about it so much that it says, don't give your pearls to pigs. But we have to guard our heart. We're not called to just expose ourselves to everybody. So there's the internal boundary, and then there's an external boundary. And what is the external boundary? I decide how close someone's going to get, but I also respect their no. And people that are codependent and have poor boundaries, also you can see it when they don't respect people's no. As a matter of fact, the minute they hear no, it's a challenge.
Yep.
Right?
So you said no, I'm still gonna go.
Yes. Yes.
They said they need space, I'm gonna pursue them. They
Right.
said it's like an obsession or excessive.
Yeah. Oh no, they don't. They don't need that. No, I'm not gonna get rejected. How dare no, I know what's best for them. Let me go save them. Yes. The third one, difficulty owning our own reality. You have difficulty doing that. So what does that mean? Physical body. I'm going to give you 4 areas she talks about, which is really good. Physical body, thoughts, feeling, and behavior. How do we own our stuff? How do we own ourselves? How do we deal with ourselves? Is there a healthy sense of who you are? Is there a healthy sense of, no, you can't walk all over me like that? No, that's not appropriate. And we don't set those boundaries. Boundaries are meant to protect us. And we are living in a world where this is becoming harder and harder, because if you come in and you set a boundary and say, this is not appropriate, this is not right, we bully people, we condemn them, we don't respect people's no.
Let's say in a relationship of codependency, how can boundaries play out?
Well, they don't play out. That's the problem. It's a free-for-all. So if the person, like you said a little while ago, this person can come up to you and say, hey, listen, I need some space. I need to calm down. Well, that you're triggered. You're like, oh my God, he's going to leave me, or he's going to do this, or he's going to do that. Do you see how complicated it gets? It's like this. I feel like I'm about to be abandoned. Now there's a codependency level on top of the abandonment, because you think, well, if I'm codependent, I won't be abandoned, right? So I don't feel safe anymore. I need to go. I got to save him. I need to be needed. Wait a minute. And you don't do that in that moment, because you know you sound crazy if you have that internal dialogue, but that's what's going on. Okay, you need space. All right. Can I tolerate you being upset with me? Oh, you're upset with me. Okay. You have a right to be upset. Okay. In codependency, there's no like, you're upset. Oh my God, what do I need to do? And there's this like, you're there in the face saying, how can I take care of you? And what? And you can't be upset with me. Like, what do I need to do? Oh, I'm so sorry. And you're constantly apologizing, and and it's like, where do you stop? And where does the other person begin? Where's the line? And let me tell you, people do this with their children. This can be a codependent mother-daughter relationships. There's a show. I'm trying to remember.
The very close mom and like it's like in a mesh.
Yes,
between mom and
every
daughter.
time I see it, all I see is pathology. I watched the show one time. I said, "This is so."
Like people think, "Oh, that's so cool." No, that's like not right.
That's so.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the name of the show? It was a show about
Yeah, I don't know the name, but it's on TLC.
They're like in
isn't
a
it?
relationship, and then the moms are best friends, and they do everything together. And oh my God, and she's trying to have a relationship. So I think most of it is they're trying to have relationships, but they have this severe codependent relationship with the mother. Or I think there's another one where they're sisters and they do everything together, and you don't know where one begins and one finishes. Okay, that is unhealthy.
And people can create those family culture. I think it's like enmeshment, right?
Yes.
And in their households where it's like, I heard this on a different podcast, which is like mind blowing. It's like moms and their sons sometimes they have like this such a closeness, but like kind of like they're without the sexual part, they are so attached, like emotionally, that it's like when that guy gets married, that mom can literally destroy that marriage and they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because her position is, I'm always first in your life because I'm your mother. And there's I know what you need. That's best. Again, that's that codependent. I know what's best for you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to do everything for you. Okay. That is so unhealthy. We are created to be independent. In the sense of learning how to have an independent, interdependent relationship. So what happens is, when you get married, you're bringing to the table your happiness, your joy, your stuff. You're bringing that to the table and you're sharing it. But you don't become what the other person is. You have who you are. And if that hasn't been defined through your development, it's going to come out in your marriage and your relationships. That codependency.
Which usually comes out in dating.
Yes.
Very highly. Especially, I know in all my past relationships, and I've talked about this on the podcast, that in all of my relationships, I can say that I literally became what the other person needed, wanted. If they said they liked a certain thing, I started liking it. Like I got into some weird, like fishing. I was all up in there, like Asian, Japanese cartoons, all up in there. Loved it. Like just some stuff that I'm like, what the heck was I doing?
Did you for real?
No, I literally, like, can you imagine me fishing?
No.
For this guy that loved fishing, and I learned to fish. I'm like, yo, who was I?
And there's
never again.
There's a difference if you're in a relationship and he loves to fish and you're like, listen, I'll go with you once in a while.
No, of course.
But this is not my game.
No, but it's like, oh, we're going to do that. I'm going to do it. Like,
it was about the outfit and everything.
Yes. Okay. I'm telling you, like, it was so unhealthy. Like, now that I look back at it, I'm like, wow, like, but there's things that I liked that my partner wasn't willing to do. So then I started dropping them. Like, you know what I mean? And that's when
But he didn't drop his stuff, right?
No, he didn't drop his stuff. So then you start realizing the unhealthy balance, because it's different. Like how you said, like if someone likes something and like I like going to pumpkin patches and they're like, hey, I'll go with you, or like, but there's also like that independence that even if they don't do something, I'm going to do it too. Like if I enjoy to do that, or I'm going to go still hang with my friends. And usually in codependent relationships, which I know we'll talk about, you start even like isolating. You start kind of being like, it's us against the world. And it's like, and sometimes of what I read in the book, people can be codependent to each other.
Yes.
So it's not only one way, like, it's not only like, oh, I'm the one and chasing him. It can also be dependent fully of each other.
Yes. It's interesting. I was listening to somebody and I could take this or leave it, but you know, that ceremony they do at weddings with the sand, where they have the sand ceremony. And this pastor was saying, I hate that. It's like, you don't like become like that. I don't like that. And I was laughing because I thought, well, let me think about that. And I'm like, you don't want to lose yourself. One of the things that I find for women, like in their 50s, when you get into your 50s and like you've raised your kids, you've been a wife, you've done all these things, they lose themselves. And the first thing is, I don't know what happened to me. And there's a process of getting back to that. In a codependent relationship, you lose yourself, but then you also have these expectations, well, you don't make me happy. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that. And there's a dynamic that continues. You exhaust each other. And then what happens? It becomes an addiction. The relationship becomes an addiction. He or she becomes the addiction of, oh my God, but you have to be happy. And, oh, what's he going to think? And, oh my gosh, okay, who are you? What about the things you like? And your ability to make decisions and your ability to stand on your own 2 feet. And it's always important that you can do that, because even in the best of situations, God forbid there would be a tragedy and you lose that spouse. What are you going to do? Like, you always have to know who you are, what your abilities are, and be true to what you like and what you don't like. And all that is going to require boundaries. So, and I think we've had this conversation where I'm like, no, when you start dating now, you say no and see how the other person responds.
Yeah. Practice my no. She's like, if you go, it's just say no. Just say, and I'm like, okay. Like, because no is very hard. Like, it has been so hard for me over the years. I always felt like my no's weren't like my voice didn't matter. Like, what I said wasn't true. If I felt some way, it didn't. So it just kind of like, it ended up being that it's so hard for me. Like, I didn't like confrontation. It was just so many things that added to it that I feel like now I'm finding my voice again. And with my no's, I feel like I'm now in like the no practice. Like, no, don't want to do this, cutting off this, because I feel like I've worked now a lot in that. You know, I'm not perfect, but like, I've worked a lot in that. Yes. So now going into like dating, I would love to be like cutting people, like right when I see that stuff, like cutting it right away instead of like prolonging it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I always used to fear that they're going to go away.
Do you find now though, when people tell you no, do you process it differently?
Yeah. Like, I also don't take things personally now.
Right.
Like, I don't attach it to me. So like, let's say as simple as like not hanging out with me, or like I wasn't invited to something. Before, I would tie my worth, like, oh, they're rejecting me, or, oh, wow, so am I too much? Like, did I do something? Now I don't process it that way. Like, I'm just like, oh, okay, they're busy. Or like, but it's also the way that I process it with other people. Like, even if they take it a certain way, I kind of like don't take the responsibility anymore.
Yes.
Of how they feel, which before I would take all that.
And that's huge, because that's one of the hardest things to do, is to make that disconnect. Is I'm not responsible for your reactions. I'm responsible on how I behave. I'm responsible in the words that I use. I am responsible with those things. I'm not responsible for your responses. Like, I'm not here to manage you. And, boundaries keeps us safe. And we need to have a foundation of feeling secure and safe with ourselves. So what happens in codependency is, I'm going to find somebody to take care of, somebody who needs me, because the attachment style was one probably of, I need to take care of people in order to be loved. If I don't do that, I'm not going to be valued. Yeah. And that opens the door for codependency. The other thing with codependence is there's a difficulty in experiencing and expressing your reality. So if you're not getting what you want, all of a sudden you're just like, well, what's going on? I don't know. I just, this isn't right. I just know this isn't right. And you can't ground yourself when you're always trying to take care of somebody else. I'm going to tell you, in the beginning, when you start doing this, the emotions that you feel are overwhelming. Of setting a boundary, of saying, sorry, you're upset. Let me know when you're ready to talk. And you walk away. How hard is that for someone who's a codependent?
Extremely hard.
Yes. Because what do you really want to do?
Fix it.
Yeah.
You're like, let's talk about it. Like, no, don't be mad at me. Like, there's still, like, this is just a side note, but there's still that person sometimes that I have to like remember the new information that I have to set that though. Like, even though I do like have worked in that, it's true. It's like the inclination to be like, oh, I'll save that, or I'll fix it, or I'll show up and help and, kind of extend the extra hand when I know that I can't. is still like a decision that you still have to make, you know?
But
like,
it's good that you can make the decision.
Yes. Definitely more self-aware.
Before.
No, definitely not.
And I think you said a key word right there. The key word is that I could do it, but I know this isn't like the best time for me. Mm-hmm. And that's where you have to kind of check yourself a little bit. Mm-hmm. Say, okay, well, wait a minute. Because in the faith world, in the Christian world, you know, we're taught to be given and to be generous and to be all of those things. But we're also taught to have boundaries. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have boundaries, you open up yourself to everybody and everything. Boundaries keeps us safe. Mm-hmm. Boundaries for my heart, boundaries on who I let in my inner circle and who's not going to come in my inner circle. Mm-hmm. And that can be really challenging. Where it gets worse is with our family. Mm-hmm. How do you set a boundary with maybe a mother who doesn't have any, or a father who doesn't have any boundaries? Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make is we assume that in order to set a boundary, I set a boundary, but they don't agree with it, then it's not a boundary. Mm-hmm.
You have to be okay with losing the relationship.
Yes.
You need to be.
If you need approval for the boundary, it's not a boundary. Mm-hmm. It's a request. Mm-hmm. No, a boundary is black and white. Mm-hmm. This is not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Let's do a little example. So if I'm with my grandma, right, or my mother, that they're always talking about something that's very uncomfortable for me, or always kind of bringing up a topic that is hard for me to talk about, and what would be a boundary that I would place, or I would say,
Grandma, I don't want to talk about that. And if we're going to keep talking about that, where do you want me to drop you off at? Because I'm going to go home.
And if she continues talking about it, I drop her off.
Yes.
Okay. And then if I, again, at another family, you know, the holidays are coming up, so you're around family.
Yes.
And issues. So if that keeps coming up,
you get up and you walk away.
You're like, I'm just not talking about it.
One of the biggest, I was very codependent in my family's relationship. So between my mom and my dad, I was kind of the mediator. I would make sure my dad was okay and my mom was okay. And I was always doing that. And I remember I finally decided I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. So I told them both what I was going to do. From now on, if I come to the house and you guys are ensued in your, whatever your argument is, I'm out. I'm leaving. So the first time I do it, and my mother called me over the phone, ¿Qué no me dijo? Oh my God. What kind of daughter? I said, I already told you. I didn't even get, of course, I had a good therapist too. And she was like, no, you just stay very calm. I already told you if I come to the house and that's what's going on, I'm going to leave. Mm-hmm. Okay. Consistency. I'll go back to the house, happen again. I would leave. Go back to the house, happen again. I mean, this went on for a while, right? I would get up, I would leave. Till one day I go to the house, they're going to start. And my mother's like, up. Maria Elena, that's my mother would call me Maria Elena. She's here. And you know that if we start arguing, she's going to leave. Mm. They finally believed me because I was consistent. Mm.
So same with if someone's acting up in anger towards you.
Yeah.
The same thing.
You set the boundary. Mm-hmm. You don't get to curse me out just because you're upset. If you do that, I'm walking away.
And even if they run after you, even if they do whatever,
you have to be consistent in your boundary. Because they're not going to believe you. Remember, codependence. So they're not going to believe you. Mm-hmm. And then for you is if I'm the one that's codependent, it's tolerating and learning not to fix it. Be okay with not everything being perfect. Mm-hmm. Give space. Mm-hmm. Guard your heart. Have an internal dialogue. Give yourself a chance to calm down and figure out, okay, what's going on. But if I don't know where you start and the other person continues, and And, you know, my whole well-being, and I mean, I've many women that have been in, this is really true in domestic violence situations, become what's called trauma bonding, and the person that's abusing them, they keep going back, they keep going back, they keep going back. There's such a codependency to fix it, to make it well, to be okay, and this is not something that, well, she's so stupid, why is she staying there? No, there's a dance that goes on before that. There's a connection. There's a whole lot of things that happen. And once you're attached, all of this stuff starts to play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of even narcissists, the empath, that whole dance of on and off relationships, same thing. Usually there's codependency in that, yes. Like of, you know, going back and then giving chances. And a lot of codependents they can be great people, like if it has nothing to do with the kind of person that they are. It can just be because they're just very in tune with other people's emotions too, and they're also just very aware of the dynamics, like how someone walks in, like, oh, they're mad, so like what happens, like it's just a lot of alertness to them.
But it's also very hyper vigilant, because you're just always like, okay, what's going on, what's you know. I remember that they would also ask me, because I did sales for a while, and they were like, man, you're so great in sales. It's because I was such a codependent. I would walk into a room and I was like, everybody had to like me, and I would zero in on the one person who didn't like me. I'm like, what is that? Not everyone's gonna like me.
Yeah.
Where everybody gets to, no.
Like,
and then you go into therapy, and sometimes people come and you never see them again. Are you kidding? You would just implode. Or and I'm very good about, you know, I can't want you to get well. You have to want to get well more than me. I can't. And I respect wherever you're at. If that's where you're at, and however long you need to be there, I will respect that. But it isn't my job to, and we have to be careful of this when we go into therapy. Oh, well, she didn't do anything for me. Well, did you do the work? He or she. Did you follow through on this stuff? Well, not really. Because again, we assume that we're going to walk into a situation where someone is going to just meet all our needs, and it doesn't work that way. Codependency runs deep, deep. And in the Christian world, codependency happens a lot in ministries, in serving.
How does that work?
In having a leader that you're all of a sudden, I got to be what this person tells me to be, and I got to take care of them. And we look at it as doing God's work, and we need to be careful with that, because our primary relationship has to be in our faith with the Lord Jesus Christ, and not all the other stuff. And we get wrapped up in all the other stuff because we're looking to fulfill this need to be needed. And we confuse that for relationship with the Lord. When it's really, that's very codependent and nothing to do. And you see them and they barely pray, or they do all the rituals, but you don't see a change in character, but there's a whole lot of serving going on, and we need to be careful with that. Codependency runs deep.
Where does it stem from? I know that you talked about attachment styles when you talked about trauma. So how does that work in codependency?
It's sort of the way that we're raised, our attachment style. I do want to say we can change our attachment styles. We can go from a very dysfunctional attachment style to what's called healthy, secure attachment. I'm gonna go through 4 of them real quick. The 4 real quick: secure attachment, anxious, preoccupied. By the way, you guys, you can go to, I like the way this counseling, it's called the Counseling Collective. You can Google it. It's out of Fort Worth. It's called the Counseling Collective. They have an amazing article on understanding attachment styles. It's an easy read. You can kind of go through it. Secure attachment, anxious, preoccupied attachment, dismissive, avoidant, and disorganized attachment. So I'm going to read here just give you some of the behaviors with it. So of course, the secure attachment prefer being with their parents over other strangers, can separate from the parents without becoming overly upset, look for comfort when they're afraid, and are happy to see their parents when they return. These are healthy attachments, like as children. These are the things we need to develop. Anxious, preoccupied attachment is a need for reassurance and constant validation. A desire for constant touch, interaction, and attachment from partners. These anxious are the people that are always like, oh, want to be with you all the time. And an anxious or panicky feeling when they're away from the partner. A tendency to neglect responsibilities due to a preoccupation with relationships or personal concerns. Yeah. Well, I know I have to do all these things. Oh, but he wants to be with me. I gotta go. I gotta be there for him. Okay. Dismissive avoiding, they're uncomfortable with deep feelings and intimate situations. They set extreme emotional and or physical boundaries. Very extreme.
So they have, what would that look like? Space?
They usually, dismissive avoidant. They avoid. They like.
So emotionally unavailable.
Yes. Very much so. That's good. Are non-committal and prefer casual sex, and idolize past relationships. Okay.
So they're always living in the past of a really, like they're looking back.
Yeah, they're looking back, and because they don't want to commit.
But they don't want to be in a relationship, but they're looking.
No, I know. The other one was better. Yours is bad. Disorganized attachment type, a hot, cold attitude when it comes to relationships. Antisocial behavior and a lack of remorse. A lot of disorganized attachment types can be very narcissistic, given those narcissistic tendencies. Recreating abusive patterns from their childhood into adult. And they can have abuse, like alcohol abuse, addictions, and things like that. Okay, so the anxious preoccupied is the one that's always, oh, I gotta be with you, and drops everything, and I gotta be there, and right. So that style is very codependent. The dismissive, so this anxious preoccupied type will usually attract the dismissive avoidant type or the disorganized attachment type.
100%.
Yep.
That's like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yes.
That just feeds, like, that just hurts your inner traumas and inner issues.
Oh yeah.
Over and
everything
over
comes
again.
out. Everything comes out. Your feelings of abandonment, your not being validated, not being respected. But there you are. Let me go get some more. Because the anxiety. I can't handle the thought of being abandoned. But you're not in a healthy relationship. But remember, one of the things we said about what trauma does is it gives you a false reality. So you've created this thing in your head that's not true. You don't have, he's emotionally unavailable. And in the dismissive avoidant, they'll come out when they want to connect, when they feel like, okay, they'll come out, they'll be sweet and all of that. And then when they're done, and they go back to their, hey, this is too much. You're getting too close. I'll see you later.
Doesn't talk to you for a few days.
Yes.
It's just needs some space.
Yes. And it isn't a little bit of space. It's like overwhelming space. Like you don't hear anything. Crickets, nothing.
Like, did they die? What happened?
And then there you are, blowing up their phone, calling them up. Oh my God, anxiety. You are on that. You are checking that phone 24/7. You're at night waiting. It's going to call. Anxious. Yeah.
So can those other attachments be codependent as well?
They can be codependent.
How does that work when both people are codependent?
Well, when both people are codependent, you've got the anxious preoccupied, right? And so here's what happens. Sometimes the dismissive avoidant will become anxious preoccupied when the anxious preoccupied pulls away. So the minute that you pull away, it's like a dance. I am the one that's going to pursue you now. And you pursue. And then you have this big fight and you're just, that's it. I'm done. No more. That's it. Well, the one who was being pursued says, wait a minute. I kind of like having somebody there chasing me. So let me chase back. Okay, hey, look, I'm really sorry. I need you. I want to be with you. Oh my God. You just don't know. It's just I've been through all this stuff, but I really care about you and I really love you and all of this other stuff. And then you get hooked again. He says, all right, he or she is back. He or she is going to take care of me, right? And the dance begins. And then you're back in it. You're like, but you said, there's nothing to back that up. But you said you were going to love me. Yeah, well, yeah.
It's like the extreme. Like they call you 15 times when you pull away, but then right when you like hook on again, you don't hear from them again.
Right. It becomes an addiction. I want you there to take care of me. Like you're my backup plan. But then you have to realize, yeah, I put myself in that position.
I think that through my healing work, I think the one thing that I found out was how much responsibility I had in being there.
That is the hardest part.
It was so difficult because I feel like for a long time, I would always be like, but he's like this, but he does this, but he does this. Like I would list out all the things and they were all right. However.
But you accepted it. You allowed it. You stayed there. Right.
Yeah. So it was a lot of like, oh.
Yeah. And it's very humbling and it is a part of like out here, like it's so embarrassing to, oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. But in vulnerability and in being transparent, there's a lot of healing.
Yeah. Talking about this today is like healing too.
Yeah.
Because it's like work that was done that was very, very hard to break
and then now you really begin to see the person like this. I need to believe who he says he is, or I need to believe his actions. I better believe that. I need to stop. I need to get out of the fairy tale and say, this is what it is. When a guy tells you, I'm just not good enough for you. Okay. Run, go.
Yes.
Or because what he needs to say is, I want to be good enough for you. I want to, we're not looking for perfection, but a willingness to say, I want to be there for you. I want to be good enough for you. Okay. But someone's telling you, well, I'm just not good enough for you. I got all these issues. Okay. Go on.
Or I know that one day when I see you with someone, it's going to hurt me like so much, like being treated like they're with you, but they're telling you that they're going to see you one day and feel bad because they're going to know that someone else treated you better. And you're like, but I'm with you though. But I'm with you though. Yes. Like I'm still here. Like I haven't left you.
What he's really saying is I'm going to feel really bad about that, but I'm not stepping up to the plate. Like I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to continue in my behavior and do what I want to do, how I feel like doing it. And it is what it is. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to do that.
I like this. You're like translating what they say. So what if a guy tells you, I am not, we're just going to do it. Cause I'm sure that there's women out here listening that are like, this is my situation.
Oh yeah.
That they tell you, okay, well, I love you, but I'm just like, I don't want to be in a relationship right now, but I love you though. Like, I still want to talk to you. Like, I still want to hang out with you. Like, you know?
Yeah. What is he saying? He's saying, I love you, but I'm not going to commit to you. I am not going to be here for you, but I want you to be here for me because I love you. My thing is, so give me a definition of love. What is the definition of love? What does that look like? Because love is, yes, it's a feeling, but then it's more than that. It's a commitment and it's a decision. I can be very attracted to you. You're very, oh my gosh, you're this, I'm very attracted to you. But love is so much deeper than that. And we throw the word around all over the place. But it's a love comes, true love, with a commitment, with, you know what, I have chosen to love you. And with that comes a commitment and a responsibility. And I love you, but I'm not ready to.
I'm not ready to be in a relationship. I don't want to be in a relationship.
Okay, well, thank you for loving me. but you need to figure out what love is, because this isn't it. This is not it. 2 is, just because you fall in love with somebody doesn't mean you should be in that relationship. But I love him is not an excuse to be in a relationship with someone who is toxic and dysfunctional. You are going to cry, you are going to suffer, but you cannot be there because it isn't healthy.
How many times have you heard, but do I love him?
All the time.
Because that's what really makes you
women
stay.
in domestic violence,
Yeah.
but I love him.
Yeah.
But I love him.
Domestic violence is also emotional abuse, right?
Yes. I call it emotional violence.
I just watched a show called Made, and it was really good because it talked about that they don't categorize that in a lot of TV, but it's just as much.
You're so stupid. You're so incompetent. You're so, oh my God, you can't do anything right every day, all the time. Everything you do, you are not validated at all. You are verbally assaulted, emotionally, gaslighted, like, yeah, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right, you can't do this, that. Years of that. Where do you think you're gonna go? When really relationships are for us to affirm each other, to grow, to be loving, to be kind, to be, there's a process to it, to connect, to build each other up, to have a favorable, always an opinion of each other that is always in high esteem. But if I go to work and I get treated better at work, and I get treated better at other places, and in my true connection of love, I'm being mistreated, I think I need to look at that. Because that should be my safe place. I know with the work that I do and everything that I do, one of the things is in my marriage is my husband and I, we're a safe place. But we have to work at it. Don't think we don't. We have stuff. It comes up. We're also, it's a blended family and it's complicated, but we are a safe place. And I know that I'm safe there. And I also know I can be me. I can be Maria. And this is who I am. And these are the things that I like and I don't like. And I'm a work in progress. And I know what my quirks are also. And he'll bring them up every so often. But I feel safe because I am respected, because I am loved. But we have to learn how to do that. And that's why I'm so passionate and I enjoy working a lot with the couples, because I really think they're coming too late. I get them for premarital. They're already, the ring is on, the wedding is set. But I think that we have to do a better job of, even before you get into the relationship, to begin talking about, hey, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. And these are the components, and these are the questions that you should ask. And this is what it should look like.
Yeah, because we don't know. We just go off of what we saw growing up, or what we see in shows or movies, or what we hear other people have. But if you don't have those, and I know you've told me that, it's like, get around people that have good relationships, that you actually are like, wow, like I would love a relationship like that. Because then those are the kind of people that you're like, they're healthy. Like they're healthy and they can give me good advice, like what we've talked about before. So how does that work then? Let's continue talking about codependency. So we talked about what it is, how it can play out in relationships. And I know that also you can have that in your family origin. So if someone's a codependent and they have anxious attachment, how can they become a secure attachment?
Again, we get back to the self-evaluation and the where I'm at, and getting educated on, all right, well, you have to admit that there's a problem and begin to look at yourself and own your stuff. Our pride gets in our way, our denial gets in our way. You have to start with you first. We can all sit down and look at the people we love and judge them, but you have to start with yourself first. 2, I tell everybody, read Codependent No More and see where you're at. And 3, again, get some help. get therapy, sit in the room, process your stuff, highlight your stuff, say, this is what's going on with me. I think codependency has a little test, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's when I knew. That's when I was confirmed codependent. And I was like, I literally made a little dot by everything because it has like characteristics that you kind of go through. So it's like, how are you in caretaking? So like one of them is like feel anxiety, pity, and guilt when other people have a problem, feel angry when their help isn't effective. There's a lot of bitterness that I feel like as a codependent, you help so much, but you also feel so empty and you feel so like bitter. Because I remember when I was helping my significant other, it was so much of me giving that I felt so angry when that person wouldn't show up for me.
Codependents have a lot of expectations in relationships because I give. Nobody told you to give like that. They told you to.
You're like, you have one.
And I want to say for me too, I have become so much more forgiving of people. I really, by the grace of God, have become so much more because I'm not doing stuff that I don't want to do. Because I'm like, hey, can you? No, I don't want to do that. What, really? I go, yeah, no. I can do this, but I'm not doing that. So I don't have this like, okay. I mean, if someone betrays me or fails me, I'm gonna feel it, but okay, I'm still me. Note to self, something's going on in this area. And I don't know, it is so releasing that I don't have all those expectations on that person. You also learn how to care for yourself. So for example, I love to shop. I like to go out and right. My husband hates it. So in the beginning, I wanted him to go with us. We were getting these big fights because for him it was torturous. Now he'll like, I'll take you shopping, but let me sit in the car. He likes to listen to podcasts and read books. So that's what he does. I'm happy. I'm like, whatever. But I have learned, I'm responsible for taking care of myself. And I love the arts. I like to go to theater. If he can go, great. If he can't, I'm going. And I'm perfectly okay with that. People get mortified. I'll go into a restaurant and sit and order a nice meal and grab my material. I am totally content on doing that. I like my quiet time, my peace time, my alone time. Even though my husband is like my best friend, so we travel well together. We get along really well. But I can be in my space and be content there, be happy there. In my as a codependent, I always felt, oh my gosh, I don't have anybody in my life. What's wrong with me? I'm so alone. I don't. I have a full life. I can do things. I am worthy. I'm going to stay busy. These are the things that I love to do. And in my journey, I want someone to share in my happiness and to share in my life. But this is who I am.
That's very true. Because I feel like when you can be alone by yourself, like with your own thoughts, with your own, like, there's so much freedom with that. And something that came in the book that really like stood out to me was about like when you free others to be who they are, you also free yourself.
Absolutely.
Like when you can leave your husband to be like how he is. And even if, let's say there's deficiencies, like there's issues that are coming up that you want to fix, but you know that that's not your responsibility. Like you let people be and you become so free because it's not your responsibility anymore.
Yes. It is very freeing. But one of the things that's really big, and I like in this one, is codependents avoid reality and core symptoms. You just don't. There's inappropriate levels of self-esteem. You don't own your own reality. Oh my gosh, he doesn't. I'm not pretty enough. I have to get fit enough, or I have to do this enough, or I have to do that enough. It's exhausting.
And you start telling yourself those things. Like there comes a place that it's not even sometimes that people are telling you. It's like you start believing that for yourself.
Yep. One time, I don't know if I had shared this before, but one time I was in the car and Raul had just retired after, over 30 years in law enforcement. So he was going through a year of adjustment. And we were in the car, we went to Home Depot. And all of a sudden he turns around. I don't know what I was saying, but talking about something. He turns around, he goes, "You," and he gives me this big list of everything that was wrong with me. Everything that was wrong with me, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him, and you do this, you do this, and you do this, and you do this. And all of a sudden I couldn't breathe, and I look to the side and I'm crying, and he gets out of the car and he slams the car. And I remember I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I get out of the car. I said, listen, you can tell me one, maybe two that I need to work on. But it is unfair for you to sit in that car and give me a list of everything that's wrong with me because you got stuff going on. You better figure yourself out. I'm going to go in there and do what I have to do. You need to apologize for the way you just treated me. I'm out. Figure yourself out. And I remember when I did that, I always remember it because to me, that was I was like, dang, Maria, you did good. Because the old me would have been like, oh, and I didn't know you felt that way. And all those things are wrong with me. I'm like, no, you can tell me one, you can tell me two, but not like this. Because I was like, I don't do that to you. We're not going there.
Wow.
And I remember he walked around for a little bit. He came back in the store and he's like, babe, I'm so sorry. He said, I feel overwhelmed. I said, okay, I can deal with overwhelmed. Don't project your crap on me, but I can do, okay, I get it. And then I was like, and my apology, because he doesn't like to apologize. He goes, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like, okay. I was very specific on what I wanted. I set a boundary and I asked for it and then I let it go. And I went on to what I was doing.
Wow, that's very empowering.
It took me a long time to get there. A lot of work.
You're like, wow, this is a new me.
Yeah.
This is a new me. Like, who is she?
It's like, I did that good. I wish I would have done this years ago. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. No, that is like encouraging because you get to see that you're able to set that can change. Like your attachment style can change.
Yes.
And from being codependent, you can change those dynamics by setting boundaries, by knowing what you need and what you want. I feel like knowing that is so important.
Yes. And you have to have a little, like you start to have a little insight inside of you to say, when you do behave a way that you know you shouldn't, all right, what am I doing? What's going on? Which is healthy because now you know that that's not appropriate behavior and you are becoming self-aware. You are like and evaluating, okay, what just happened? I lost it there. Yeah. And there'll be situations where you won't always do it right and you don't have to. In a healthy loving relationship, it's the ability to recover. It's how you do that and how quickly you do that. That makes it a secure attachment.
So it's not the issue at hand. So issues will come up, but
Sure.
It's how you're able to manage the problem that's happening.
Yes. And how you recover. How you recover from an argument. How do we recover in conflict? Are we still intact? And am I still my self-esteem and who I am and your self-esteem and who you are? But if you ensue in a battle and you rip each other to shreds, there's something going on there where you attack each other's self-esteem and who you are. So sometimes, when you're single, you don't have to deal with a lot of this stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But being single is also an opportunity to get to know yourself, to like be a healthy single person. Be a healthy single person. That is the best time to read, to get informed, to be free, to enjoy life, to do those things. and prepare yourself for that relationship. And the way that you do that is you do this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Learning to say a lot of no. I feel like definitely I always wanted to prolong, because I was in a long-term relationship and I was pushing years, but to the point where I am is like finally in that like singleness of like, okay, I'm single and that's okay. Like it's getting to that acceptance part of where I'm at, which took a long time. But I feel like it's been a lot of healing, like grieving, like I've said, and it's like looking at your old self with compassion, because a lot of my patterns and a lot of the way that I thought about myself, things that I allowed, that I was like, what was I even doing? And then it's also kind of being scared, which I have shared with you, of how that's going to look like in a future relationship, because my track history is not that great. And I want to make sure that I have a healthy relationship now that I have all these tools. So now it's like, okay, where can I take my tools and then get into a healthy relationship? Because now I feel like I'm in that part of like, okay, I'm not going to do that, but I want to make sure that the other person is healthy as well.
Yes. And you have the tools. If something feels familiar, check it.
It's not a good feeling.
Right. It's going to feel a little like, oh, wait a minute. This feels familiar from before. Wait a minute. What's going on? Yeah. You'll be fine.
We'll see. What encouragement do you have for someone, or just some last words that you have for someone that is a recovering codependent in either their family, their relationships?
The most important thing when we talk about codependency is the more that you understand who you are, the more that you're grounded. And I'm gonna say this from a faith base, from my Christian worldview. The more that I understand myself in who God created me to be, and I stand on a foundation that the Holy Spirit that is in me guides me, that I was created by, a God who thought of me before the creation of the world, that grounds me and says, wait, I belong to him above and beyond anything else. And that grounds me, and that keeps me centered on who I am and who I was created to be. Self-care is really important. Honoring God, honoring myself, and continuously setting those boundaries is really important. And that my value of who I am is not attached to other people. It's important in my relationships, because my relationships are very important, and my family, but it's not, I know where I stop and they begin. So it's something you can learn to do. It's something that you accept the love of God, and that means you loving yourself. And we need to do that better.
And being around people that remind you how loved you are. I feel like that helped me in my journey, because sometimes we don't know what love looks like because we never experienced it. So I feel like getting around people, aside from you knowing who you are and how loved you are by God, and also being around people that remind you how loved you are.
Yes. And those people are people that are encouragers. Keep moving forward. Listen, you're a work in progress. It's okay. All right, you messed up, get back up. What are you going to do? People who are encouraging.
I agree. Well, thank you so much, Maria, for this.
Thank you.
Another amazing talk, a lot of education. And again, if you haven't gotten a therapist or a group or a small group or a community, I definitely recommend that. That definitely helped in this past years of my own healing journey, to be around people that, of faith, and also people that I can speak with and talk about these situations. So thank you guys so much again for tuning into this week's podcast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast, follow me at Elizabeth Sabby, and then I will also put Maria's information and books and resources for codependency for you to learn more about that. So thank you so much, and have a good week.